We'll move for a light. Hi, in this video we're going to be trying to fix up these 4 Roberts radios. So a viewer called Stuart sent these in, and they belong to his autistic son called Matty. Now Matty loves music, but obviously with him being autistic he's, let's say, a little bit rough with the radios and they've all stopped working. So let's see if we can fix them up for Matty and hopefully we can get them working for him. This is where the power goes in, and it takes 6 volt at 0.8 amps, so 800 milliamps. Right, I'll set the bench power supply accordingly. Let's just see what we've got on here. We should have 6 volts, and we do. I'm not sure if there's a light just came on there or not. Well, this one doesn't appear to be doing anything. So let's see how it comes apart. It looks like we need to remove those 4 screws on the back. I'm not sure whether we need to remove those 2 as well. Right, let's grab a screwdriver. There we go. The whole thing just slides off. I was trying to lift it like that. Right, so it looks like we've got a little power supply board here. Let's just have a bit closer look at that. Can't see any voltages marked on there. So I guess this must be the solar charger. As the solar panel comes in to this point here, and it looks like the batteries come into this point here. They look like audio. That's the USB one probably in the middle. So it looks like we should have some voltages on this connector here. I'm just going to disconnect these audio plugs. I'm just going to get a pen so I can just mark these up so I know which ones go where. Right, I've just finished marking those up, so we've got 1, 2 and 3, and I've done the same on the plugs here. So let's plug the power supply in and we'll just see if we get any voltages on this connector here. Oh, we've got 6 volts there. And we've got nothing. So it appears the fault could be on this power supply board here. Let's get that out and have a look at it. So it looks like that's held in with 4 screws. Let's get those out. Probably a smaller screwdriver. Ooh, there's actually more on there than what I thought. Right, let's just zoom down a bit on that. I'm not sure what that IC is there. Just see if I can make any markings out on it. Looks like a BS003F3P6, maybe. I'm not sure what that IC is. Unless it's either USB interface or some kind of headphone amplifier, perhaps. However, I've just noticed the soldering doesn't look very good on this connector here. I'm not sure whether that pin is supposed to be connected or not. It doesn't look like there's any pad around there. Right, that looks like the pads came off on this power connector here, because that's the positive terminal and these are the grounds, so it looks like somebody's maybe tried to fix this before. So I think the best course of action on this is to resolder those, and we'll try jumpering a wire from this pin here to this pin here, and then we'll see if that makes it work. Right, I'll get the iron on. Right, back with the iron and a piece of wire. So I'm just going to resolder these ones first. I have to take a bit of solder off that and maybe cut that slightly smaller. Right, I think that'll do. Let's see if we can see anything else obvious while we're here. Right, I think we'll just try that and see what that does. Well, we've got a light. Right, well, at least we have power now. So on the face of it, it looks like that was the problem with this one. It looks like the circuit board had been damaged on the power connector. So I'll reassemble this one, so the next time you see it, it should all be together. Right, all back together, and I've just tuned it to a station that I can just kind of faintly pick up in the house. Because we've got 2-foot thick walls, we get very poor radio reception in the house. So this one appears to be working, so let's have a look at the next one then. So I thought we'd have a look at this one next. Let's see what this one's doing. I'll just zoom out a little bit. Let's plug the power lead in this one. Oh. Well, this one does appear to be getting power. A little charge light comes on there briefly when we switch it on. And then it goes off. Now I know there's a selector in the back for whether you're using normal or rechargeable batteries. Let's just turn charge off. I mean, it must be getting power then for it to actually light up. So, I mean, the power button's definitely doing something there. Right, let's pull this one apart then. So again, we've got 4 screws on the back. Let's see if this wants to slide off now. It looks like the solar panels came off with the back on this one. Right, I'll just unplug these. Oh, this one's only got 2 plugs. Actually, no, it's got 3, but that one's in a different place. So that one must be the USB because it goes to the main brains of the unit there. So it's actually slightly different design, this one. And the power supply is slightly different as well. Because you've got this extra module here now. I thought these would all be the same, but obviously they're not. Let's just zoom down a bit on this area. So this one's got this little subboard there. So we've got a 2SB772, so that must be a transistor there. So I guess this is some kind of regulator it's being used as. So let's plug the power in and we'll just see what voltages we get coming out of this connector here, going to this one. That's the power supply plugged in. I'll just zoom out a bit to get the meter in shot. I'll just use this as the ground. And we've got 6 volts to the back of the connector. Let's just see what we're getting on these here. Well, we've got 5 volts on this one. So on the face of it, this one's getting power. So why isn't it working? So the charger light seems to toggle on and off with the power button. So we obviously know the power button's working. I wonder if it's a problem on the brain of the thing here. As I did have a problem with one of these type of radios before, and the problem was actually on here. There was a shorted cap on the actual brains of the unit. Well, I think the display was still lighting up on that one. But we're not getting any display on this either. It's like the backlight's not even lighting up. So it might be a different fault. I'm just going to see if we get any voltages on this thing here. Now, I don't think I can get the meter quite in shot there. So I'll just see what voltages I get on that. So nothing there, nothing there, nothing there. Let's just try that power button. Right, I've got 5.8 there now. 5.8. Let's just try on one of these capacitors just here. So nothing there and nothing there. Let's just try on these diodes. 0.1 of a volt. 0.1. I know what's on this bit. Let's see if we can get this. Yeah. What we've got here then. Now I did have a look at a similar radio and it had a chip that was blown underneath one of these cans. And it looks like we've got a big capacitor there. So I'm just wondering if there's a voltage regulator or something blown under here. So if I go on these capacitors here, I mean we're getting like literally nothing. I'm trying these points here. Nothing there. And here 5.8. If I press the power button and then try that again. Was that the power button I pressed? I'm getting 5 volts there. 5.7. 5.1, that's weird. 5.7. 5.1. I mean, it's a pity it didn't have any voltages written on here, so we knew exactly what voltages we're supposed to have and what pins. I mean, we're only getting 0.2 across that cap there, and that looks like it's on a supply. Oops. Let's just try across this cap. 0.1. the fact that we're getting voltages here suggests that the problem could be on this board. That looks like the audio amplifier without having the caps there. Oh, it looks like the speaker terminals actually come to here. So unless there's an audio amp underneath this can, possibly. Let's just see what we get on this little subboard here. Interesting. Well, we're hardly getting anything on this little subboard here. I mean, we've got point. Let's see if we can get the meter head shot there a bit better without the glare. So we're going to this transistor here. We've got 0.1, 0, 0.7. So the fault might actually be on this power supply. Let's try switching that and we'll just see if that changes it at all. Yes, it does. So this must be switching the power to the rest of the board. So I just thought I'd get the thermal camera out just in case there's anything getting hot on the board. In case we've got a short or something like that. I can't actually see anything getting hot on here. I'm going to pull this power board out, I think, again. Let's just have a look at that. Just unplug the power. You never know, we might have something burnt out on the bottom of it or something. If I can get the board out. There we go. Right, let's just zoom down a bit. I mean, the soldering doesn't look too bad. It probably maybe very slight dry joint around there, or bad fatigued solder joint, sorry. Hold on a sec. I don't know if I can zoom in enough with the camera. I'm just looking here. I'm not sure whether that track's broke away there. Yeah, I think that's the problem. So we've got power going to this part of the circuit, but not down this line here. So this is actually a different power board to the other one. So I think if I resolder that connector and then just jumper a wire from there to there, like I did on the previous one, that should probably fix this one as well. So I shall get on with that. Right, I've just finished soldering a wire across there to there, so let's see if this one works. If that was the problem with this one. Hey. Right, so I'll put this one back together and we'll give it a test. So some of you might be wondering why I didn't get a video out last week. Well, my wife had a pretty bad horse riding accident and she broke her leg just below the knee. She's had to have a steel plate put in and screws and I think some extra bone put in there as well. So it was a pretty bad accident. So my time for actually doing repairs now was quite limited because I'm having to do all of the stuff that I normally do and all the things that she normally does, such as even things like just going to the shop to get milk or dropping my son off at his course or just things like that. So things are quite stretched at the moment. So we'll have to see how I get on actually with repairs at the moment because it's quite a stretch to do stuff. Right, I'll get this back together and then once it's back together, we'll give it a proper test. Right, that's that one all back together. Let's just plug it in. And switch it on. That's better. was thinking it's not going to do anything there for a moment. Right, now we're not going to get any DAB in the house, so that one seems to work. On to the next one then. So this one isn't solar. It looks very similar, but it actually hasn't got the solar panel on top here. It's just got a Roberts logo instead. So let's plug this one in. And again, completely dead. Right, let's pop this one apart. Built-in battery charger. So it's probably the same design inside, just missing the solar panel. Now this one doesn't seem to be unscrewing. Looks like it's possibly being dropped here. And I think the post that the screw goes into is just turning here. I'll just see if I can unscrew it there. It looks like it's coming very slowly. Yeah, the post's snapped off. Let's just see if I can get this one apart. I think I'll just go straight for the power board on this one. We'll check the connector. Maybe the problem with all 4 of them, I'm not sure yet. Like I say, we're doing it to help Matty out, so it is what it is. So this is like the sort of stuff that we're getting at the repair cafe as well. As some of you know, I volunteer at our local repair cafe where people bring stuff in. Well, that's interesting. This one actually looks okay. I was expecting something like the power connector there, but that one actually looks alright. I don't know if that's glue or whether that component's erupted or something there. This could be glue. Right, so why aren't you working then? Let's just plug the power in. And I'll just get the meter in shot. Let's just see what we get on this connector here. I've got 6 volts. Okay. Let's just try here. Yeah. Oh, my power supply just tripped there. Hold on. So we're getting 6 volts to that point there, but nothing there. So I wonder if there's a small break just on that trace. I wonder if there's a break just here. Just there maybe. Because we should get power to that point. Actually, yeah, look, it's broke there. So on this one, I might put a blob of solder from there to there and reinforce this with a piece of wire from there to there. So it's probably just the leads are being getting pulled in that, I think that's what's gone on with these. So I'll sort that one out and then we'll see if this one works. So I've soldered a piece of wire from here to here, but this track here is going to be a weak point still. It goes from here to this 470 ohm resistor and then through to this 0 ohm resistor. So what I'm thinking about doing is using a through-hole resistor. Maybe removing the 470 here and putting a 470 through-hole from here to here. So something a bit like that, if I can fit it on here. It's probably a bit big, this one. I don't know if I've got any smaller ones. And then that's going to be a lot more robust than this little tiny connection here. So I'll see if I can find a smaller 470, because this one's probably a bit big. And then I'm going to solder it from there to there. And then we'll give this one a test. Well, a very slight change of plan on this one, because I was going to solder the resistor from there to there, but there was not quite enough space. So what I've done is I've soldered it from the positive terminal of the plug here and just direct to that point there. And I think that'll be a lot more robust than trying to solder a wire onto this tiny little pad here. So I think that would just break off. So right, I'll get this one back together and then we'll see if this one works. Right, radio 3 all back together. Let's just see if it works. And where's FM on this one? That's a bit loud. Right, let's have a look at number 4 then. Right, radio number 4, let's see what this one does. It's also sporting a broken aerial. I might have an aerial to fit that actually. I've just seen the low battery light come on there. Oh. Well, this one's switching on, but we don't have anything on the display. So I wonder if this is a problem on the power board or whether it's a fault on something else. It's definitely different. I just heard the speakers click off there when I unplugged it. So this might be a different fault. Right, I'll rip the back off this one then. I think the first thing I'm going to do is just check this power board. As you never know, it might be a problem on that again. So let's just check this first. I'm just going to take that out. Because it's sending power to one part of the board, we might get the symptom where the display lights up, but still where nothing comes on it. And if it's not that, it could be a fault on the other part of the board here. Just want to come out this one. Well, the tracks and everything look intact on this one. I can't see any broken tracks and the soldering looks intact. So this may well be a completely different fault to the other 3. I'm just going to resolder those just in case, but I don't think it's that. I think this is the same power board as what's in the very first radio we looked at with this IC here. Right, I'll resolder this just in case, and then we'll try it, but I don't think it's going to make any difference. I think the fault must be elsewhere. It could be on the main control board, like a shorted cap or something, because I did have one that had very similar symptoms to this. Let's just see if that's made any difference. Well, the lights are on, but nobody's home. So let's see if we get any voltages to this module here. Because when I've looked at a similar radio before, we should have a 5 volts, I think, and I think it's a 3.3 and then maybe a 1.8. So let's just see what we get on here. We've got 3 volts. And we've got 1.3. Oh. So the fact we're not getting anything on the display, I mean, it could be the display itself has gone faulty. It looks like it's controlled by the signals here. I wonder if I switch to FM. Let's just try that. Ooh. Well, there's definitely something not right with this one, isn't there? And the fact that we're getting voltages here, I would think that the problem is going to be in here. I'm just going to unplug it a second. I'm just going to see if I can get this little can, this little shield off the top here. And I think we might get the thermal camera on it. It actually looks soldered on, this little shield. Right, let's see if I can get this shield off. I'll be one moment. I've managed to remove the shield and can, so I've got the thermal camera here, so I'm just going to plug it in. I'll just switch it on. So that's it on now. Let's just see if there's anything gets hot on this board. And absolutely nothing's getting hot. So the last one of these I looked at, it was the capacitor shorted about here. Right, let's just check voltages. I'll just switch this off again. Let's see if I can get the meter in shot as well. So on the last one I looked at, it was a little capacitor down here that had shorted. So let's just go across that. Yeah, we've got 3.2 there. And there was 2 ferrite beads. I think one was a 1.8 volt line and one was a 3 volt line. So we've got 1.2 there. And 3.2 there. So we're getting the correct voltages to this board. I'm just trying to remember which pins are the power for the flash. But we're getting 3.2 volts to that as well. So I'm suspecting that this module here has failed. because we're getting the voltages to the core here, but it just doesn't seem to be doing anything. I mean, the only other thing, we've got some of this glue here. Perhaps it's caused a bad connection on the crystal here. I mean, we could check that with the scope maybe. Might do that, just see if we can see if there's a waveform on this crystal here. So I thought I'd just use a little Finersi scope here. It's a lot easier than setting my other camera up to look at the other scope. So just get a ground point here and we'll just go onto this crystal. And it looks like we've got absolutely nothing. I'll just try one of the power pins. Let's try one of these little inductors here. So that's the 3 volts and that's the 1.2. But we've got nothing on this crystal. So I thought I'd put it under the microscope just to see exactly what's going on. And if we just measure the voltage to the crystal here, you can see we've got 0 volts. And the supply, I think, comes in on this cap here. 3.2, it goes through this ferrite bead here and ends up going to the IC here, and you can see we've got 3.2 going to this pin of the IC. So the IC is getting power, but we're just not getting any clock here. So either this IC hasn't been initialized from this one, or there's a failure here. I mean, all the soldering looks okay. I mean, I might resolder that flash just to rule it out, but it doesn't look like this one's going to be repairable, I don't think. I mean, they're the ferrite beads that I mentioned earlier, and if you look here, we've got 3.2 and 1.2, and those go to the core of this IC here, which is like the main brain. And the 3.2 goes into the IC here. So it looks like the IC is getting power, but it's just not doing anything. So I don't think we're going to be able to fix this one, unfortunately. I'll go over this chip with the ironing anyway, and then we'll just see if that makes any difference. So just to verify that the fault is on this board, what I've done is I've taken one of the, I think it's the first radio that we looked at, where I marked the board here. I've taken that one apart again, so if I just switch it on, you can see that one works fine. I'll just disconnect the power a second. I'll disconnect this board now, and we'll plug this board in from the radio that's not working. So that's it plugged in there. I'll just plug the power back in. And now we'll try switch it on. As you can see, it's not working. It's doing exactly what it was doing in this radio. So the fault's definitely on this PCB. I think it's the main chip. So I just thought I'd try one last thing with this, and that was just try to see if it's even attempting to read the flash. So as you switch it on, you can see we've just got constant voltage there. If I try the other pins on the flash, nothing at all on that pin. Nothing on that one. So the only thing we're getting is just a constant voltage. There's no signals at all. So I know some people are going to say, is it not the crystal? Well, there's no voltage going to the crystal, and the crystal needs voltage to actually oscillate. So the fact that there's not even getting any voltage to the crystal means either this chip's failed or it's not initialized, and that might give the clock to this chip. Either this one's got an internal clock, but either way it's not reading the flash. It might be that this one reads the flash and then initializes the PLL and whatever on this chip, which then runs the crystal, but it's not actually doing anything at all. And we've got all the voltages there, so there's definitely something failed on this board. And I don't think there's any information available on these chips to even find out the pinouts of them. So I'll pop this one back together, and I think then we'll finish up. Right, so let's sum up here. So number 1 was a fix, number 2 was a fix, number 3 was a fix, but unfortunately we weren't able to repair number 4. But what I'm going to do, because obviously we're trying to do this to help Matty, I fixed this one in a previous video. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to send him this one as well. So hopefully he enjoys this one when I send them back. So he'll still end up with 4 radios, and this one's a monster of a one compared to these other ones. So hopefully he likes it. Right then, I think we'll wrap it up there, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one, hopefully.